So, welcome. We are starting a new series, Prophetic Generations Part 1. And for uh, various reasons, we're always in the middle of something. And now we're in the middle of a story where we open, where there's going to be a transition from the world of Eliyahu Hanavi to Elisha Hanavi. Among all Nevi'im, these are the two most famous Nevi'im because of the vast numbers of miracles that they do that they're famous for. And of course, as we will see, and as everyone knows, Eliyahu Hanavi never dies. He's still going somehow. What does that mean? And how does that come about? And why should that be the case? Yeshaya Hanavi, Yirmiyahu Hanavi, Chezkel Hanavi. How about Yaakov Avinu? The Gemara Masechet Tanit says Yaakov Avinu lo mate. And the Gemara itself recoils and says, what do you mean he didn't die? It says in the Torah that he died. It says he was embalmed. It says he was taken to Hebron. He was buried in Marah Machpelah. What do you mean? He never died. So the Gemara says, as long as his children are alive, he's still alive. Is that true for Eliyahu Hanavi as well as the same kind of idea? We don't hear about Eliyahu Hanavi's children. So who is it referencing is a bit of a question. So that's the first thing. We just started, so you didn't miss. Okay. It's all good. Just situating us. In fact, I have a lot of people saying they're coming, but they're all then texting. I have a cold. I'm out of town. I can't come this week. I'll come another week. Okay, sure. Well, we're going to learn anyway. Whoever's here. So glad to see all of you. So, what I want this series to focus on is really the transition from Eliyahu to Elisha. It'll be a bit of a compare and contrast, but also not just compare and contrast, but of course the continuity. And there is a fair degree of continuity from one to the other. To begin, we've learned many years together. So, those who have, we've talked many times about the fact that the organization En Mukdam Mukhar B'Torah applies also to the Navi, that sometimes things are organized in thematic sequencing instead of chronological sequencing, right? It doesn't mean that the Navi or the Torah itself doesn't care about chronology, but themes are important. Here, it is pretty much I could say a linear progression from Eliyahu to Elisha, but the stories about Eliyahu and Elisha and how the transition happens from Eliyahu to Elisha and what does it mean to transition leadership from one generation to the next comes in phases. But what do I mean? Eliyahu Hanavi reaches the zenith of his influence and involvement, 3-year drought that comes to an end on Har Carmel, recalling the false prophets of Baal, Achav, Izebel, right? Everything that transpires there. And the fire comes down from Shemayim, consumes the Nevi'ei Habal. Remember? Does not consume nothing happens first. Let's start with that. Nothing happens first, and the fire doesn't come down. I misspoke. Fire does not come down at all for the Nevi'ei Baal, but it does come down for Eliyahu and consumes the offering that he has. Right? Then they actually kill all the Nevi'ei Baal. It's not fire from Shemayim. It's important to make that clear. The people themselves do it. Then in chapter 19, Izebel finds out that Eliyahu has killed all the Nevi'ei Habal. These were her people. These were her yes men, and they're dead. She decides she's going to kill Eliyahu. He runs away, essentially he's already been living on the land because she had a campaign to kill as many Nevi'im as she could. There was a murderous campaign. Now Eliyahu goes down to Har Sinai, and he encounters the map on page 1. We don't exactly know where Har Sinai is. There are all sorts of possibilities. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, who knows? But it's somewhere in Midbar Sinai, we assume. So one of those places, he goes all the way down there. And when he arrives, the whole episode of the encounter of Eliyahu Hanavi with Hashem, with the cave, right, with in the area on Har Chorev and basically on Har Sinai, and that's the place where there's going to be various loud sounds and wind and fire, and the net result, right, the Kol Dama Madaka, the still small voice. Eliyahu receives three missions at the end of his life. And those are on page 434. Pasuk Tet Vav. And these three things are the last three things he needs to do in his lifetime. And then his mission has concluded. That's how it's described. Vayomer Hashem elav, lech shuv ledarkecha midbara damasek, uvatu mashachtet chazael melech al Aram. So if you're just looking at the map, that's pretty far north from where he is, obviously. V'et Yehu ben Nimshi timshach melech Yisrael. Yehu is going to be the new king, not featured here on the map where that's going to be, but the kingdom of Yisrael, capital city, Shomron. So you'll have to go to Shomron. And third, V'et Elisha ben Shafat me Avel Mechola timshach menavi tachtecha. So you could see on the map where Avel Mechola is, south of the Kinneret. Yeah. So you're going to make him into the Navi after you. Essentially, a three-tiered punishment. Whoever escapes from the sword of Chazael will be killed by Yehu. Whoever escapes from the sword of Yehu will be killed by Elisha. V'yishar be so shivat alafim akol habirkaim asher lo charu labal v'chol hapeh asher lo nashaklo. I'm going to leave 7,000 people. So first of all, stop right there. Right, these are three steps that Eliyahu Hanavi is going to take, all of which will culminate in punishments for the Jewish people. Now, in our last series, for those who are here, you recall, which we had skipped this section and we started with there were two series. There was one chapter 20, 21, 20. We talked about the war. Remember? Yeah. The national injustice then of Karmot Navot was after that. But before that, we talked about these wars confronting northern threats was the name of the series. And it was the wars with Aram. And the king of Aram is not Chazael. It's Ben-Hadad. And then the stories that we saw in the last two series were all about Achav and Izevel, not Yehu. So Eliyahu Hanavi is still alive. Shem told him, go up to north to Aram and get Chazael installed. Go to Malchut Yisrael and install Yehu. Number three, go get Elisha. What did Eliyahu Hanavi do? Went backwards. It's almost as if you could say, and you could sort of see it on a map, if you look on this map, maybe he was on his way to Damascus, but he's passing through Avil Mechola. It's one possibility, just geographically, right? He was passing through, so he went from Har Sinai, wherever it is, he went north. He passed through Avel Mechola. So I'm here anyway. Big deal on the sequence. Hashem told me what to do, and I'll do it. Huh? Yeah, please.
For another country, like he was crowned another king.
Right. So who else did that in Jewish history? Who crowned a king or who had interactions with the king? It's very strange, right? Clearly, the fact that he would be able to have sway with a foreign power could only mean that he's going to get there and stay alive if they're somehow either under the thumb of the Jewish people, which they weren't, because Ben-Hadad got his whole army together, remember, to destroy Malchut Yisrael. So maybe that had to be put in place. It's possible. But who else interacts with a non-Jewish king, actually goes to him, speaks to him? Moshe, for sure.
Battle with the warrior king.
Avram with the wars, but he doesn't go out and like give a king instructions. This is what Hashem said, right? The Nevi'im do have nevuot about what's going to happen to the nations around. Happens in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu with involving Bilam. But somebody else who makes a trip to go to a foreign capital to deliver a message in the name of God. Yonah ben Amittai. Yeah. So Yonah ben Amittai is somehow related to Eliyahu Hanavi. Not for now, really, but it's related to Eliyahu Hanavi. Amittai and Emet. Is he actually literally his son? Is he his student? There's all sorts of speculation in different places what the relationship was there. But just interesting, when you think about The idea of having a footprint in terms of political issues where a Navi would go to Chutz La'aretz to actually carry it out. But that is what Hashem told Eliyahu to do. So you look at the Ralbag. Ralbag writes, Hashem Elav Lech Shuv L'Darkecha. So that's missing here from the Dibur Matchil. L'Darkecha Midbara Damasek. Wrote Saloma Shilach L'Darkecha Midbar Damasek. Umisham Yimshach Hazeh El Melech Al Aram. V'Haratzon B'Zeh Yoto Nivchar El Melech Al Aram. He was chosen to be the king, and God is deciding who's going to be the king. Umisham Shachi Ben Yimshil Melech Al Yisrael. Umisham Yimshach El Yisrael Ben Shafat. Meivel Mechol L'Navi Tachat Eliyahu. Achas she'ein ratzon Eliyahu Lihiot L'Nevi'o U'Lamaz L'Yisrael. As soon as he would do the third step, getting Elisha ben Shaphat to take over for him, his career would be over, since Eliyahu did not want to be the Navi anymore. Questionable how many Nevi'im actually really want to be Nevi'im. It's very few. So he decides, what does he do, right? Because of the wickedness of the Jewish people, he doesn't want to stay alive anymore, right? He's asking God to kill him, basically. He said to God, take me. Elisha ben Shaphat, Lasot lo siman sheyeh navi v'yilbash nevuat Eliyahu im shlevishat ha'aderet hayta siman l'navi. Everyone knows what's coming. We all learned Navi before. So what the encounter between Eliyahu and Navi and Elisha Hanavi is what's going to make Elisha the Navi. And so he did step 3 first. So,
So he could be like done.
He could be done. It's finished. Well, Zamar Knuvali Yilbashu Or Aderet Seir Laman Kechesh v'Yadamesh Shehodia Eliyahu Elisha Revuah v'Tzivo. Basically, the assumption is that he told him, here are your marching orders. Go to Chazael, that he'll be the king on Aram. Tell him, and you'll be the one to actually be Mosheich Yehu ben Nimshi, to be the Malach on Yisrael. And it was as if Eliyahu did these things, because his student represented him. So it's as if he did it. Oh, Yeharatzon Bezet. Can you pray Ratzon Eliyahu ba'onesh Yisrael? Lefi Mashi Yoreh, Mashali made Aleim Chova Lifnei Shemit Barach. Hineu Sibadi Mashach Hazel Lemelech Al Aram. Umashach Yehu Lemelech Yisrael. Mashach Elisha Lenavi Tachtav. So, could be the issue here is the whole point of Eliyahu is he wants the Jewish people to be punished. He taught against them, things that were meant to be prosecutorial, condemnatory. That was the encounter. They didn't listen. They abandoned you. Okay. And for that, Hashem told him, Umashachta. So you'll pour it out. You're going to be the cause of all those things that will happen. He wasn't telling him the sequence per se. It was just telling him, when all these things happen, you should know that it will all flow from the fact that when you could have stood up for the Jewish people, you took my side instead of their side. Contrast with Moshe Rabbeinu. So now we go back to the the Radak, right? Kind of along the same lines. Shamarta Rav Ata Hashem Kach et Nafshi Tzarich Taniach Navi Tachtecha V'Timneh Elisha ben Shaphat L'Mdeu. So you'll appoint him and you have to teach him. There's a medrash as well, right? I no longer want your prophecy. You're prosecuting my children, so I don't really want you to do it. So make someone else the Navi instead of you. Yeah. So here we are. Pasuk Yud Yud Tet. Pasuk Yud Tet. Yeah. So now, Vayelach Nisham. Vayimtza et Elisha ben Shaphat, v'hu choresh shneim asar tzmadim lefanav, v'hu b'shneim he'asar, vayavor Eliyahu elav, vayashlech adarto elav. So he finds Elisha, and he is plowing 12 rows of oxen in front of him, very powerful ox, and he's at the back of the line. They're in a row, presumably. And they're going through this. They're doing the plowing. Yeah. And Eliyahu, what does Eliyahu do? He doesn't say anything to him. He just shows up, and throws his aderet on him. Yeah, this was a symbol of who he was as a person, right? I know a lot about the word aderet for obvious reasons. It means to refer to a kind of a strength, but not just for the sake of the strength. The point is that it's a representation, not only of strength, but something involving a certain royalty. It's a mantle. It's not stam a coat. It's a cloak, but one that is of great significance. That's why the symbolism of it was he didn't pour oil over him to make him the new Navi, right? It says Tim Shach Navi Tachtacha. The equivalent of kinging him is he gave him his cloak, right? The question is, okay, why do we need the information about what Elisha ben Shaphat was doing? Why not just say he showed up, he saw Elisha ben Shaphat, he threw his aderet on him? I mean, it tells you in 3 words basically that he went from Har Sinai back up to Avel Mecholah. It's a far distance. No stories happened to him, so it's not relevant. Something here is happening, right? Something here is transpiring at the moment that Eliyahu arrives. Elisha's working in the field, tells you he's part of family business, maybe. And Eliyahu encounters him, interrupts what he's doing. Clearly had an impact on him, because Pasuk Chaf, Vayazov et habakar, Vayaretz achrei Eliyahu, Vayomer, Eshaka na le'avi u'li'imi ve'elcha acharecha. So just pausing right here, he abandons the cattle. He runs after Eliyahu and he says, "Let me just kiss my father and mother goodbye, and I'll go after you." Eliyahu has not said a word. Showed up, saw this guy in the field, ran out to him in the field, whipped off his cloak, threw it on him. It landed on him. And he turns around and he says, "Let me just say goodbye to my parents. I'm coming with you." Didn't tell him why he came. There's no idea. Vayomer Eliyahu just says, "Lech shuv kimeh asiti lach." This is strange words. What does that mean? All right. What have I done? What have I done to you? Now, you could read this as somebody else. Go and return. Go say goodbye to them and come back. For what have I done to you? Meaning, you should tell them what I have done to you. Okay, that's one rendering. Another, right? In other words, that I'm just making you the next Navi. That you figured it out. That's why I threw my aderet on you, and you got the memo. You're coming with me. I'm gonna train you. There's a tutelage. Explain to them why you're not going to continue the job. Could also be read as Lech shuv kimeh asiti lach. Why are you leaving? You don't have to say goodbye to them. Come with me right now. Right now, right now. We have to leave. We have to go right now. For what have I done to you that you're going to run away from me now to go say goodbye to them? Another one, of course, Lech shuv, go away and come back. Because I don't want to be a Navi anymore. And look what I just did to you. Boy, what I just did to you. I put the whole thing on your shoulders. Now, that's just on the level of shot. I didn't open a single parshan. I'm just saying, read it. Lech shuv kimeh asiti lach. Rachel, you want to say something about it?
I still like the first one.
The first one best? Okay. Vayashav ma'acharav, vayikach et semet habakar, vayizbachehu, uvichli habakar bishlam habasar, vayitain la'am vayochel, vayakum vayelach acharei Eliyahu vayisharteu. So he goes back, he takes from these oxen, yeah. And what does he do? He offers them up, he slaughters them. It's not that it's a korban, by the way. He cooked them, and he gave it to all the people, and he fed them. And he got up and he followed Eliyahu, and he served Eliyahu. Vayisharteu, a general statement. He's serving Eliyahu. How long will he serve him? Doesn't say. As long as Eliyahu's still alive, he doesn't know Eliyahu's about to die. He has no idea. So look on page 1, second to last source. It's really the last source gets on the page. Chorshim lefanav. V'hu olech b'tzemad ha'acharon. He's in the last row. V'chol zot, achas yishich Eliyahu adarto ilav davka nafsho b'ader Eliyahu. He cleaved not just Eliyahu, he cleaved to the aderet. Why? He felt their spirituality. I'm just telling you what the Malbim writes. The spirituality that was shining, radiating from it from the time when he was in the cave. If you look on page 434 in the Koren Tanakh, top line of the page, so happens, verse 13. Vayihi kishmo Eliyahu, vayalet panav ba'adareto. He covered his face. He wrapped himself up in this adara. It was the veil, the masveh, like Moshe Rabbeinu had when he was on Har Sinai. Now he's also at Har Sinai. He's also in the cleft of the rock, just where Moshe Rabbeinu had been, and he wraps himself in it. And in fact, it's the Malbim writes, Ki masveh she'al pnei Moshe. Right? And we'll see later, soon, he's going to use that aderet to split the Jordan River. Yeah? I mean, he was in the middle of doing a job for his family. So it's a bit strange that I'm out of here. Maybe he didn't want to be doing the work. Maybe he was happy, right? He's certainly overwhelmed. Yeah. He also did not, Elisha did not hesitate to say, why did you do that? What's this for? What does it mean? He understood right away. And he accepts right away, doesn't he? Unless maybe he's asking his parents' permission. Not clear. It doesn't say that. He says, I'm going to kiss my parents. It means I'm saying goodbye. According to the Malbim, there was such a sense of ruchniut from this object that was now on him. Like, right now, he doesn't know the story about where Eliyahu has been, but he feels something when it comes upon him. That's his hamshacha. Next page, page 2, over here. Vayoshav me'acharav. L'nashek la'aviv uli imo afal pishlo siper katuv. This is also no, this is Radak. Sorry, even though it doesn't say that he kissed his father and his mother, he did that. V'char kach shachar bakar v'asas seuda v'oto aseder l'chorshim v'la'am asher bo acharav l'avoto v'zeu she'amar v'yitein la'am. That's what it means. He gave to everyone who was there. They made a sudat mitzvah. The nation, the people from Avim Chol were not with him in the field. There are 11 other plowers. Each one is holding an ox with a plow. Elazeu pirusho. A small town boy makes good. Right? The prodigal son of El Mecholah. They're seeing him off, so they make a meal and they eat the food. Right? Vayitein la'am malbim merov simcha asam mishteh. Right? So before we get to the next piece from the Rav Meidan, yeah, I'm always enamored of Rav Meidan's Torah. You'll hear on Shabbos again as well from Rav Meidan, something I'm working on. He says, wait, someone doesn't add up in the story. Why was Eliyahu in the cave? He had to run away. Why did he run away? Because Zebul was hunting him. Why was Zebul hunting him? Because Achav came home from Har Carmel. Why did Achav come home from Har Carmel? Because it was the whole episode in Har Carmel, which ended in the first rains in 3 years. So for 3 years, it didn't rain. What is going on in Avel Mechola that some guy is plowing things? Basically, what? A few days later, there's a famine. They haven't had food for 3 years. Rav Meidan claims that this business with the reason why we have to know that he's plowing is, okay, maybe the rain started again. After all, when Eliyahu lived as he did as a fugitive for those 3 years, he had water in a place called Nachal Crete. So maybe there still was some water. Avel Mecholah is in the valley. It's more lush. Maybe there was some food to eat. But the point here is Elisha starts waking up as a leader the minute he realizes the people who work for me are also hungry. And maybe instead of all these oxen, I have to slaughter some of them, which are the means of production, by the way, for my family's land, to feed them now. I thought it was a very interesting idea. Like, it's there to teach us that he made his personal simcha. I'll make it into a drasha for a rabbi. He made his personal simcha at becoming the Navi into the simcha for all the people, and particularly the people who work with him. by providing them food. He made a kiddush. He threw a kiddush. Yeah. But the point of throwing the kiddush was also it's on the heels of the 3 years of famine. And there's a drought. I mean, this is a famine. It's a drought, which means that leads to a famine. Yeah. So just for consideration, maybe it's there to show that he's coming of age. He recognized that the Navi, and now Ramadan didn't put it this way, but now I'm throwing it in. He recognized the Navi's job is going to be to take care of the people. Emesh, 1 day earlier, 2 days earlier, 3 days, 5 days, how many of them? It's days, not years. Eliyahu is at Har Sinai, and was he telling God, I work for you. I could care less about them. They abandon your covenant. They hunt down the Nevi'im. They're terrible people. But Kanoki Neti, I'm zealous for you, Hashem. The new Navi, the first thing he did, he was not told to do this. He realized I have to provide for them. Maybe he'd been insensitive when he was just a private citizen working for his parents in family business. But now he realized, I'm a Navi. I got to take care of them. Before we march on into the next section here, I gave you the end, which is really not fair because you're missing all the majesty that comes before it of The Lonely Man of Faith. An essay appeared in the RCA's publication, Tradition Magazine, Orthodox, Journal of Orthodox Jewish Thought. So the Rav first published it in Tradition, 1965 in the summer. So you see the Rav, when you read it, it's a little bit scary because his first language was Yiddish, and then he spoke, obviously he spoke German, and he goes to the University of Berlin, and he spoke Russian, whatever else. And then in there, he also has English. So this is the English of Rabbi Soloveitchik, 1964. He arrived in 1932 to the United States. So clearly he learned a thing or two about how to express himself in English, yeah? Elisha was a typical representative of the majestic community. He was the son of a prosperous farmer, a man of property, whose interests were centered around this worldly, material goods such as crops, livestock, and market prices. His objective was economic success. His aspiration, material wealth. The Bible portrays him as efficient, capable, and practical, remindful of a modern business executive. I'll pause here just to say, for those who have not yet read The Lonely Man of Faith, but how could a Jew in the 21st century not read The Lonely Man of Faith? The Lonely Man of Faith tries to understand the first two prakim of Sefer Bereshit as two typologies of the human being that are both true at the same time. Calls it Adam 1, Adam 2. The first parak, second parak. And to distill a complicated and, again, magnificent essay that runs over many, many pages, Adam 1 is very much about living in the world. Shem put him here. He has a wife. Her name doesn't matter. His name doesn't matter. They are Zachar and Akeva, right? Baraotam. They're here to produce, to procreate, to create, in the sense of innovation, not actual creation of Bria, but of innovation and subduing the world. And they're part and parcel of the natural order, and they're about surging forward, etc. Second parak, we're reintroduced again to Adam and Chava, but now they're named Adam and Chava. And Adam realizes he's lonely just being a person who goes to work every day. He wants to have a community, and he wants to be engaged in that community. First, he's looking at the animals. It's not working out. Shem gives him a helpmate. She has a name. V'chule, v'chule. Okay? There's a lot more there, but yeah. Adam 1, Adam 2. So it's the same person, but the Rav writes, that's the lonely man of faith, is that we are in a world where there are aspects to us, to every person, that is Adam 1, and aspects to us that are reflective of the theme of Adam 2, and there's a certain oscillation between the two. And therefore he writes, that's the loneliness that he's referring to, is increasingly in the modern era, and now we could say in the postmodern era all the more so. Adam 2 is it has receded somewhat, and Adam 1 has come to the foreground. Maybe it's debatable in 21st century if that's still true, but it certainly was true in the mid-20th century when he was writing. A lot more to this. I really have just done it a tremendous disservice. I gave you the whatever it's called, Sparks Notes, 3 sentences version. But so now he's describing Elisha is that person. Works for his father. He's in the business. He's raising money. He's prosperity, material wealth. There's nothing bad. He hasn't done anything wrong. It's not that he's entirely selfish. He works for his parents. He loves his parents. Yeah. When Eliyahu met him, we are told, he was supervising the work done by the slaves. He was with the 12th yoke in order not to lose sight of the slave laborers. What did this man of majesty have in common with Eliyahu, the solitary covenantal prophet, the champion of God, the adversary of kings, who walked as a stranger through the bustling cities of Shomron, past royal pomp and grandeur, negating the worth of all goods to which his contemporaries were committed, reproaching the sinners, preaching the law of God, and portending his wrath? What bond could exist between a complacent farmer who enjoyed his homestead and the man in the hairy dress who came from nowhere and who finally disappeared under a veil of mystery? Yet unexpectedly, the call came through to this unimaginative, self-centered farmer. Suddenly, the mantle of Eliyahu was cast upon him. The operative term here, of course, being suddenly, when he least expected it. Yeah, unexpectedly, suddenly. While he was engaged in the most ordinary, everyday activity, in toiling the soil, he encountered God and felt the transforming touch of God's hand. The strangest metamorphosis occurred. Within seconds, the old Elisha disappeared and a new Elisha emerged. Majestic man was replaced by covenantal man. He was initiated into a new spiritual universe in which clumsy social class distinctions had little meaning, wealth played no role, and a serene, illuminated, universal we consciousness supplanted the small, limited, and selfish I consciousness. Old concerns changed, past commitments vanished, cherished hopes faded, and a new vision of a redemptive covenantal reality incommensurate with the old vision of an enjoyable, majestic reality beckoned to him. No more did the quote-unquote farmer care for the oxen, the means of making the soil yield its abundance, which were so precious to him a while ago. No more was he concerned with anything which was so dear to him before. He slew the oxen and fed the meat to the slaves who, half-starved, toiled the soil for him and whom he, until that meeting with Eliyahu, had treated with contempt. Moreover, covenantal man renounced his family relationships. He bade farewell to father and mother and departed from their home for good. Like his master, he became homeless. Like his ancestor Yaakov, he became a Rami Oved, a straying Aramean, who took defeat and humiliation with charity and gratitude. However, Elisha's withdrawal from majesty was not final. He followed the dialectical course of all our prophets. Later, when he achieved the pinnacle of faith and arrived at the outer boundaries of human commitment, he came back to society as a participant in state affairs, as an advisor of kings, and a teacher of the majestic community. God ordered him to return to the people, to offer them a share in the covenantal drama, and to involve them into great and solemn colloquy. He was God's messenger, carrying, like Moshe, 2 tablets of stone containing the covenantal kerygma. Kerygma means a message. Many a time, he felt disenchanted and frustrated because his words were scornfully rejected. However, Elisha never despaired or resigned. Despair and resignation were unknown to the man of the covenant who found triumph in defeat, hope in failure, and who could not conceal God's word that was, to paraphrase Yirmiyahu, deeply implanted in his bones and burning in his heart like an all-consuming fire. Elisha was indeed lonely, but in his loneliness, he met the lonely one, capital L, capital O, meaning Hashem, and discovered the singular covenantal confrontation of solitary man and God who abides in the recesses of transcendental solitude. The Rav ended the essay with this pointed question for all of us. Is modern man of faith entitled to a more privileged position and a less exacting and sacrificial role? Question mark. End of essay. So there were echoes here of what I just quoted the name of Rav Meidan. I guess the Rav was writing a little bit in 1996 also. You realize I'm not just living for me. By the way, it's not as atomized as I described it, right? Like Adam 1 in the Lonely Man of Faith was not this selfish, self-centered person. He's majestic. He's endowed as Nasa Adam, but Samin Kidmutenu, Vayas Lakim et Adam, but Salmo Kidmuto. Yeah, in the image of God and has all these capabilities. But Adam 2 in the second parak realizes there's more to life than just forging ahead. What about everybody else? What if I am defeated? What if I am, finding feeling disenchanted and frustrated? And Eliyahu is starting to bestow his strength on Elisha, but Elisha will take it, as we'll see, in a little bit of a different direction. Now, the last series, 2 series and 1 series ago, we didn't see this part. We focused instead on confronting northern threats because it's in the air about the wars with Aram. We talked about the alliance that happens between King Achav and King Yehoshaphat, Malchut Yisrael, Malchut Yehuda, banding together in order to fend for them, to fight against, fend for themselves, but really not for themselves, to amalgamate, essentially, to unify again in war against Aram as well. And sandwiched in between there was the moral bankruptcy going on, playing with the other hand on the piano, was Kerem Navot, the whole story involving the orchard and not just the overreach by King Achav and his vixen wife Izebel, but further the injustice and the bringing to bear the judicial system as a cudgel with which to not just browbeat but kill Navot, and to give it the patina of some kind of legal justification. Remember? And we just sort of focused on that on the political side. But now, if you look at Melachim Aleph, Perek Chaf Aleph, after the terrible crime committed by Achav, even though during the war itself, there's a prophet, and he's basically anonymous. And the Mefarshim, at one time, eventually his name is mentioned, but in chapter 20, it doesn't appear. Remember his name? Anonymous prophet with a mem? Michaihu, right? Michaihu, he speaks a few times, but sandwiched in between the stories where the prophet is Michaihu, involving Achav and Izebel and everything that's going to happen, suddenly there's another episode involving Eliyahu. God gave Eliyahu the job already. He told him 3 things to do, but then he sent him on another mission. What's the other mission? That's verse 17. Page 437, chapter 21, verse 17. Yeah, give him his punishment. Tell him what will happen to him. Now Eliyahu already knows that Achav will be supplanted by Yehu ben Nimshi. And Eliyahu, right? We just saw that's what God told Eliyahu in the 3 last commands that he gave him. The third was get Elisha installed. The first was get Chazael. There is no Chazael because the king at this time is still the old king, Ben Hadad. Yeah? So, Eliyahu is told by Hashem, go to Achav and tell him, it's over. The dogs will lick your blood. What's Eliyahu probably thinking? Because I'm going to go find this fellow Yehu and I'm going to king him. But that's not what happens. Because you remember, we learned this last time, something unexpected happens involving Achav, right? And that is, he does tshuva. And that's verse 27. He's going slowly. The lethargy sets in. He changes clothing, and look at the clothing. Also, he tears his clothing. He's wearing sackcloth. Right? We learned that he's very sad to hear this news. He realizes he's been caught. He does tshuva. Look at verse 28 and 29. And now against the backdrop of everything we're talking about, you understand why it's here. Do you see how the way you just spoke to Achav, he was submissive, he relented, he's doing tshuva now. Yan ki nichnami panai lo avi hara'a biyamav biyamei beno avi hara'a beito. Vayishvu shalosh shanim ein milchama ben Aram u'ben Yisrael. Because of this tshuva, I will not bring the bad times. The evil will not come upon him in his day. It will be in the time of his son. That's the Hara'al Beito, where Yehu ben Nimshi will be king as the new king over Israel, and not whoever the descendant is of King Achav. His dynasty will end and someone else will take over. But also, there's now going to be 3 years of peace between Aram and the Jewish people. So why didn't Eliyahu now go to get Yehu ben Nimshi? Presumably because Hashem told him, it's not happening now. And why didn't he go to Chazael Melech Aram? To make him the king. After all, he's going to be the one who's going to punish the Jewish people. It's speculative, totally speculative. I surmise he didn't go because he realized, okay, yeah, Taka, they can do tshuva. Now it's too late for Eliyahu. He's not going to be doing that part of it, but he's going to have to put Elisha in place. But you see it as a bit of a rebuke now to Eliyahu, right? See, they could do tshuva. See, Achav did tshuva. So only a few minutes left, but we basically learned the other part involving the war and the alliance. So look at page 440, skipping ahead, page 440, and we learn the following. Achav dies in war, as you know, and his son Achazyahu takes over. And that's verse 52. As I've said many times, who cares about Melachim Aleph versus Melachim Bet? It's all just one book of Melachim. Chazal did not know of a book 1 and book 2. It was literally arbitrarily split, and so arbitrarily that, according to our tradition, there's a parsha here from verse 52 till verse 2 inclusive. But whoever decided to split between Melachim Aleph and Melachim Bet, boom, splits right there. It makes a new chapter. Ignore. There's no distinction here. It begins with Achazyahu ben Achav. It's not a new book either. That's totally continuation. So Achazyahu ben Achav ruled in Shomron. It tells you some details about him. He did bad things. He followed what his father and his mother had done, the wickedness that they had done. He followed the way of Yeravim ben Nevat, worshipped Baal, bowed down to it, angered God. Now Moab was making a war, not Aram, but now Moab. Aram had just been defeated in a battle, even though Achav was killed, but yeah. And what happens? He has an accident. Verse 2. Vayipol Achazia be'ad hasvacha ba'aliyato asher b'shomron vayachal vayishlach malachim v'yomer alehem lechu dirshu beval zevuv Elohei Ekron im echye mecholi zeh. So if you look on page 3, you'll see there's a map. Just along Kvish Shesh, where Kvish Shesh is today, is what we think is the biblical town of Ekron. If you look just to the left of it, you'll see Ashdod and Ashkelon. To the south, you see Kiryat Gat. To the south of Ashkelon, you'll see a place called Aza. These were all Philistine towns, which at various times were conquered by the Jewish people, not conquered, yes, no, whatever. He says, go find Beelzebub. For the name Beelzebub, this is it. Baal Zevuf. It's the name of the god of Ekron, the mysterious fly. Right? So he's their god. Go ask, will I die, will live, or will I die? That's obviously not a good choice, to put it charitably. Umalach Hashem diber Eliyah tishbi kuma leili krat malachim melech Shomron v'daber aleim bli ein Elohim b'Yisrael atem olchim lidrosh beval zuv Elohei Ekron. So an angel speaks to Eliyahu, and he tells him, get up, go to find the kings of Shomron, the emissaries of the king of Shomron. Speak to them, ask them. There's no God in Israel. You have to go find idolatry. L'chein כה אמר Hashem, המיטה אשר עלית שם לא תרד ממנה. The bed that you went up to after you fell and you had your accident through whatever lattice work there was in the second floor, you're not coming out of it. Ki mot tamut. So vayelech Eliyahu, he starts going. Vayeshuva malachim elav vayomer alehem ma zeh shavtem. So the quote unquote the camera pans, right? It skips the whole thing because it wants you to focus on the moment when these emissaries come back to Shomron, to the sickbed of Achazyahu. What are you doing back, right? Ish Allah likratenu vayomer elenu lechu shuvu el hamelach asher shalach etchem v'dibartem elav kol amar Hashem bli ein Elohim b'Yisrael ata shleach lidrosh beval zevuv Elohei Ekron lachein hamita asher alita sham lo tirnu mena ki mot tamut. They tell the whole story, and he says, wait, vaydaber aleim memishpat ha'ish asher Allah likratchem vaydaber aleichem advarim ha'ela. What is the mishpat of this person? So what does mishpat mean? Look in the Koren translation. Yeah. What was the manner of this man? Manner? What does that have to do with anything? But now look at their response. Vayomer elav ish bal se'ar ve'izor or azur b'motnav vayomar Eliyah tishbihu. So they say to him, a man with lots and lots of hair, and he is girded with some kind of a leather belt on his loins. You could see it. Apparently, it was big. You could see it. These tons of hair, beard and hair, right? And right away, Achaziah knows exactly who it is. Oh, it's Eliyahu HaTishbi. He knows Eliyahu HaTishbi. So now, in closing, look at the Malbim, top of page 3. השאלות, למה העריך? אבל אומר, מה משפט האיש הזה? אחי, לא היה להם סימן אחר בו? רק השעור והאזור? Why did they just say it's Eliyahu? They didn't seem to know. Achaziah knows, but they don't seem to know. It's strange. And this whole back and forth, and now we have to tell you what did he look like? What was his mishpat? And why the word mishpat? What does that even mean? He didn't understand. They bring me a message from a Navi. Why did the Navi show up here? Didn't this anonymous Navi keep showing up for Achav previously? He did. And Eliyahu's had interactions with Achav in the past. Why didn't he show up? It's not normal that he would go to bring the prophecy through somebody else. It must be this another anonymous Navi. Because it can't be Eliyahu, because I know who Eliyahu is. We would just show up. Maybe he's dressed in the clothing of poor people. He's embarrassed to come to the gate of the king. It means mishpat ha'ish means what does he look like? What's his description? What does his clothing look like? That's why Koren translated as mishpat. Achar asher Allah likratchem v'yidaber aleichem v'lo bal daber elai. The fact that he went to you and not to me. So what does he look like? Who is this person? V'gam chashav shebezeh avar al shlichuto v'gam ekel b'chvod hamelech v'chayav mita. He also thought that clearly the Navi, if he didn't show up, clearly has violated something maybe against God or whatever. And he has clearly denigrated the king, just sent the message. He didn't come himself. And now, Achaziah, the wheels are already turning. I get to put him to death. V'gam zeh nichlal, mashkatuv, ma mishpat. Ma inyano u'ma nasho. What has he done that he's sending me a message? And what will his judgment be? It was a play on words with the bishpat, because he wanted an opportunity, basically, to take him down. Radak, last line for today. It's all we'll have time for. Yeah. Ki yodeh haya ki min hagola ezor or v'ayadua ki bal se'ar haya. He was known. He was known. That's why he knew right away to say, "Oh, it's Eliyahu Tishbi." He knew that was his name. Yeah? He said, because he knew. V'temahu. Hayach lo hayu makirim oto malach Yisrael v'lo haragilim achav v'shomron. How did they not know who he was? The emissaries wanted to just say his name right away. V'afshar ki elu anashim shishlach melech Yisrael lo hayu az b'shomron k'shaya Eliyahu ragil sham. Maybe they weren't in Shomron at that time. Uzman rav haya Eliyahu shelo haya b'shomron. Why wasn't he there in such a long time? Mipnei Izevel shamra lahorgo. Shari Melcham ben Hadad ra'inu shelo haya sham. V'lo b'milchamot ramot Gilad ki Michiyahu ben Yimla haya lahem az hanavi la'Hashem asher b'shomron. In other words, Eliyahu had disappeared. He was living in hiding because of Izevel. He wasn't around. By the by, she had her campaign against Nevi'im to try to kill as many Nevi'im, and she had a campaign specifically against Eliyahu after the Har Carmel incident. She says, "I'm going to kill Eliyahu next time I see him." So he hasn't shown up yet. It's been a long time. Now, how long exactly has passed? Well, it's a number of years, isn't it? It said 3 years. They didn't have war between them after the episode of Navot, and then there was another war. Yeah, and we start doing the math. Years have passed. To us, we just flipped some pages. But so when you think about it that way, so they didn't recognize him. But Achaziah, who maybe he was the child, after all, it says he was the child of Achav and Izevel. He knew what Eliyahu looked like. And how could it be? He disappeared. He's gone. And when people disappeared in the old days, of course, they're probably dead after a point, especially because there was a replacement. And that replacement didn't just bring bad news. He also brought some good news. We saw that whole back and forth. So the idea here, though, that even Achaziah, if you will, is building a case against Eliyahu. Who is he? What does he look like? What's his mishpat? And of course, Achaziah, click, 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 click. He's also going to be saying that Eliyahu is guilty and worthy of being killed, etc. And this is very important to understanding what happens with Elisha. You'll see next time how this all will all play into the world of Elisha. But for that, you have to come back next week. I've gone for today. Thanks for coming. That's it.